Everybody knows that the Pokemon slogan is gotta catch 'em all, but at a point, did you know that the head of 4Kids originally came up with the phrase catch 'em if you can? Which I think is a lot more appropriate now. With the introduction of hundreds of Pokemon since the franchise's early days, catching everyone can be a daunting task, and there are those Pokemon that take more than just throwing a Pokeball and rapidly pressing A and B, even though that last part doesn't really work, but it feels like it does. Now, like my worst Pokemon moves countdown, this list is as opinionated as it is fact-based. While I will provide some cold hard facts on what's hard to catch, find, obtain, my own personal experiences will factor in just as much. So now, without further ado, I give you my top 10 hardest Pokemon to catch. Enjoy, everybody! A shiny Pokemon with perfect IVs, EVs, everything you could ever want on the first try. Honestly, tell me if you've gotten one legitimately. I'm curious. A tried and true hard encounter, Abra is that one Pokemon that never gets any easier to catch. Unless you come back to the early routes later on and have everything you need to catch one, but I'm talking about when one first starts their journey. A time where they only have a couple of team members and a few regular Pokeballs to their name, maybe a Great Ball if they're lucky. During their travels, they come across an Abra, an uncommon Pokemon that, if one wants to add to their team, needs to be caught in one go, otherwise it'll teleport away. Abra's a Pokemon that kinda shakes things up for a lot of new trainers, and what's great about that is that in every game it can be caught in, it's given the same experience. No matter who you talk to, everyone knows the struggle of catching one, and it's really amazing to see something like that, given how far Pokemon's come. Seems to me like Abra will forever be the classic tough Pokemon to capture, and another thing that hasn't changed about it is that it's always worth the trouble. Legendary Pokemon are pretty strong, but most of them can actually be caught fairly easily. All you have to do is stock up on Pokeballs, save your game in front of the Pokemon in question, and just keep chucking till you catch it. Though in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, there's one exception to the rule in the form of Deoxys. After catching Rayquaza in the Delta episode, you're immediately thrown into a battle with Deoxys in space. And I do mean immediately. You get no time to save in between events, so if you kill Deoxys, you need to go through catching Rayquaza again, and that segment is pretty long. I mean, that's only if you want Deoxys right then and there. You can always come back later when the episode's done to catch it, but if you don't want to do that, you're just difficult, you might use your Master Ball out of desperation. Though somehow, I got lucky enough catching it with a Premier Ball. I haven't been in a situation like that since I forgot to save before catching Ho-Oh in Silver, and I say it made that whole segment of the game even more intense. Like seriously, good on you, Game Freak, that was a really nice twist. Politoed's always been one of my favorites, but it's also been a fairly hard one for me to acquire. You have to trade Poliwhirl with the King's Rock, of course, but trading Pokemon was more of a novelty for me as I had a hard time finding people willing to trade stuff. Nowadays, it's gotten a lot easier, but if there's a Pokemon I can catch without trading, I am going to catch it. Come Gen 5, Politoed became catchable, but even in-game it's a tricky one to get, mainly because of one move in its arsenal. Oh no! Since Politoed has such a small level up move pool, a wild Politoed will always have Perish Song, and they will use it at some point in the battle. And when it happens, it sends you into a panic mode. Now you only have 3 turns to catch Politoed before it kills itself, almost like it doesn't want to be caught. Then the hunt begins again, and whatever game it's in, Politoed only has a 5% encounter rate, so happy hunting, I guess. Mythical Pokemon are very elusive creatures in the Pokemon world, but Mew and Manaphy in particular have slipped through my grasp for many years. Mew is of course a given. It definitely lives up to its mythical status, said to be so rare it may not even be real, and to get an official one you need to go the extra mile. I've only just gotten my first legit Mew via retail event, and the closest retailer was an hour's walk from my house, so hey, I really did go the extra mile to get that thing. On the flip side, Manaphy's not as secretive as Mew is, but it's even tougher to get, only being obtainable via a side mission in a Pokemon side game. That mission has you redeem a code given out on Pokemon.com back in 2007, which can still be found if you do some digging, though that code can only be redeemed once per cartridge. But if that sounds discouraging, no need to worry, because for the month of June 2016, you can get yourself a Manaphy via mystery gift, and hopefully you got it if you're watching this after the event. There's just something about the fact that these guys are so unobtainable that makes me want them even more than other legendaries, and I'm very lucky to have gotten them after so long. I mean, there is the option of raising 10,000 Pokemon in my Pokemon Ranch, but no one in their right mind would do that. Oh, Chansey, where to begin with you? Not only are Chansey extremely hard to come by, but trying to weaken them enough to catch them is pretty hard too. You'll barely make headway weakening them with special attacks, and physical stuff will outright kill them, though that's still one of the better ways to catch a Chansey. Probably the worst way to try and get one is via the Safari Zones. In the Safari Zones, it has an encounter rate of 1% and a catch rate of 30, so if you find one there, you have a 3.9% chance of successful capture. Throwing bait makes it less likely to run, but doubles the catch rate to 1.45%, and throwing rocks halves the catch rate to a whopping 6%, but makes it more likely to run. And it can still run away regardless of what you do, so what's the best thing to do exactly? You have 3 options, but they're all utter crap, and if you screw this up, you don't know when or if you'll see another one. It's a lot to handle. That's why most of the Chanseys I have came from catching them as Happiny first. Last time I got a Chansey in the actual wild was back in Silver. Leaf Green, not even close. It may not be the end-all be-all of Pokemon, but like the best of them, you'll need all the luck in the world to get one, because it's a truly Chansey task. Oh hey, that's where Chansey got its names from! Clever! Oh, you want to talk about a hard time catching Pokemon? Right here is where it's at. It's do or die time when a roaming legendary gets brought into the picture, and I don't care how much you prepare, no one gets these things easily. It is a quest that gets even worse when there's more than one to hunt down. Like many other players, the legendary beasts were the first to have me tied in knots. I remember almost having a heart attack first seeing Entei show up out of nowhere, and when it left as quickly as it came. It was then I said to myself, oh, I am not looking forward to this. Trying to get the beasts in Gen 2 was a crapshoot, but with time I figured out the whole cut them off at the pass trick, which came in handy by Gen 3 when Latios was in my sights. Still, I spent months chasing it around Hoenn, doing only so much damage to it without killing it, but I eventually caught it. I'm just glad I didn't have to deal with Platinum's 5 roamers. I think I would have gone nuts! And I'll tell you right now, I find the thought of a legendary running away from me a bit baffling. I could understand if you were a weak or shy Pokemon, but you have the power to shred my entire team to ribbons and you decide to run away? That's either very noble or very petty. What, am I not good enough for you, Entei? Get back here! It's fitting that a group like the Reggie Trio would have such a crazy convoluted method of obtaining them, but while the lore behind it is cool, trying to crack the code is downright insane. The first part of that code being written in a language that, generally speaking, nobody is going to know if they are playing Pokemon right then and there. Game Freak did supply a braille chart in the Gen 3 instruction manuals, but since I got my copy of Ruby used, i.e. no instruction manual, I hadn't a clue what to do. So that's when I looked up what to do online, and I honestly didn't believe half of the stuff I read. I need a Wailord and a Relicanth in the first and last slots in my team, have to wait 2 minutes in front of a cave, run a lap around a cave, use Fly in a cave? I already heard enough rumors about the Mist Stone and the Pokegod, so when this actually worked, it was quite a surprise. It also seems every subsequent generation puts a new spin on how to catch them, and in Oris they added another layer of stupid for catching Regigigas. Not only do you need the Reggie Trio in your party, but your Regice has to hold some kind of cold item, needs to be nicknamed, and it has to be during the daytime. Why is that? So what's next? I have to hold the 3DS upside down while hopping on one foot to get it in Sun and Moon? That's what it's leading to, I swear! I don't know about you, but to me, Munchlax doesn't seem like the kind of Pokemon that would be hard to find. But for some reason, it's pretty much one of the hardest Pokemon to find in the whole series. In the Sinnoh games, there's only one way to get Munchlax, and by extension Snorlax, without trading, and that's done by slathering honey on the honey trees. There are 21 honey trees in Sinnoh, and encounters only happen every 6 hours in real time. Then comes the hard part. Munchlax appears on 4 randomly generated trees every save file, and there's no way to know which ones they are in-game. And you know what Munchlax's encounter rate is, by the way? Yeah, you guessed it, it's 1%. Thankfully, I never had to deal with this because I've only gotten a Munchlax via trade in Gen 5's Undella Bay, not knowing what people a generation prior had to go through. You try it yourself and it could take weeks even with outside help, but fortunately, Munchlax is very easy to capture. This Pokemon is slow and dim-witted, making it an easy catch. if you can find it. They forgot to mention that last part in the entry for Feebas. Though Munchlax may be a bit harder to find, I put Feebas above it because of personal experience. I've never dealt with the trouble of finding a Munchlax, but I know the feeling of searching for Feebas all too well. In the Gen 3 games, it can only be found on one route, but much like Munchlax, you know where it is, but you don't know where it is. Among the hundreds of water tiles on Route 119, Feebas is only found in 6 of them, and there's absolutely no way to know which ones they are. Other Pokemon also show up in the Feebas tiles, and it's possible to miss it entirely if you only reel in one Pokemon per tile. Depending on your luck and perseverance, finding it could take anywhere from a few minutes to a few years. As impossible as it sounded, I wanted a Feebas to fill my Pokedex, and while the chance to miss it is low, I wasn't about to take that chance. I fished at about every tile at least 5 times to be absolutely sure a Feebas wasn't there. Several hours went by, to which I found one, caught it, and evolved it into my Lotic, and it stands as one of my biggest personal achievements as a Pokemon trainer. And I will never do it again. Thank goodness the remakes made the search easy. Some Pokemon get easier to catch as time goes on, some get harder, and others never change. But if you want to be the very best, it's right there in the phrase. You gotta catch 'em all. Thanks again for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. Now, if there's ever been a Pokemon that you personally found hard to find, catch, obtain, just feel free to share it in the comments below. And if you liked this video, if you so choose, you can share it with a friend, give it a like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. It really does help out a lot, you know? Also, you can check out the social media links on screen, in the description, yada yada yada. And with all that said, I will see you guys next time. Catch you later. Oh hey, a pun! Clever!